story starts way back in 2007, and I was going on a big train ride, and as a last minute idea, I picked up this book at a bookstore to read on the train. And it's the All Music Guide, required listening, featuring 1,000 classic rock albums. And as a record collector, I thought, well, this might be interesting. So I bought this book, and as you can see, it's got pictures and a write up on tons of famous records. And along the way, if I've owned the record or if I own it, I've put check marks. And, well, I completed the book. So I went through and I got all 1,000 records. It took me years, but I did it. I completed it, which was cool. From a collecting point of view, this was a fantastic way to find records that I wouldn't have probably known about even at some stages. These would have been new artists for me at some point. But I went through and I was able to locate all of them. So after spending years scouring flea markets, garage sales, record stores, anywhere you could find a record, I had happily completed my 1,000 classic rock albums of all time, required listening by the All Music Guide. It was a really big moment to complete that. It was something of an accomplishment, and I felt as a record collector that I'd really done something. The problem was, upon listening to this, I didn't agree with some of these titles, and they were not my 1,000 top classic rock albums of all time. And it got to a point where there was a pile of this stuff that I really didn't listen to ever, maybe once or twice, and that was it. And so what do you do? What do you do with records that you don't want anymore? Well, you sell them. The problem is not every record in here is really all that saleable. So I decided to bundle up my extras and I put a crate together. I got in touch with some people that do sell at flea markets and do pop-up sales and things like that. And quite frankly, they weren't interested. And this is what's starting to happen with some of these artists who are becoming a little bit more irrelevant. Not a lot of people looking for certain Jethro Tull or Genesis or Foreigner records that are, quite frankly, very common, easy to find records, and not a lot of interest in them anymore. So what do you do with these? What do you do to kind of move them along and not lose a fortune on them? The market is correcting itself after a COVID boom. And this presented a little bit of a problem with me. Storage is an issue when you get the amount of records that I do have. It was starting to be where I just needed these gone. And I made some offers to some various people that all agreed were very fair, but they just didn't feel they could actually sell the records and they were going to sit on them for a very long time. So I kind of resigned myself to the fact that I might own these forever, and that was okay, but I'd rather move them along. So fast forward a couple of weeks later, and I was out with some relatives visiting from out of town, and we came upon a record store in a city we were visiting. And I went in, and lo and behold, there was a record there that had been on my list of personal wants for a very long time, and I'd never seen. It's a very extremely rare record, and it's quite sought after if it is available. And I thought, maybe I could do a trade, and maybe I could take all of this stuff, and the shop might take it as inventory, and we can do a trade. So I took my crate of records and packed it up and took off and went back the next day to this shop, even though it was out of town for me. And I just thought, I have a feeling. So the shop owner, when I was in the day before, had said, actually, this has been here for a little while. And I think just due to the price, it's a very expensive record. And I thought, well, maybe they'd be happy with a whole bunch of inventory that maybe they could sell at a lot cheaper prices, which might go better right now for somewhat of a grail record. So I went in, took my records, knowing that if you're selling to a record store, even in trade, you're going to get sort of beaten down pretty good. And I understand that. They've got overhead and they have, they got to keep the lights on, and they got to sell a lot of records every month to not only break even, but actually pay themselves and their staff. So I understand this. And if you know that going in and you're kind of all right with it, then this is the move to make. Of course, you might want to think about Facebook Marketplace or other things like that if you're trying to make more. But I knew the value of these records, and they were low-end records that weren't that saleable anymore. And I'd already been shot down twice on trying to move them. So I thought, well, maybe this will happen. Well, as I entered the record store, I could see the excitement on the shopkeeper's face, and he was thrilled that I was bringing in a big box of records to have a look through for trade, especially when I said trade and not sell. And then I quickly saw his face turn to disappointment as he saw what the titles were. Now, this wasn't classical or country or big band swing and things like that you can't sell anymore, that nobody wants. But these were instead classic rock, but of bands that are quickly falling out of interest for a lot of collectors. And, you know, they're not records that you see selling a lot these days. And he kind of admitted, well, these are going to sit around a long time. And if you're a record collector and you've been at it for a while, you probably own these, or you don't want them. That's kind of these are the low-hanging fruit of the hobby. And thus part of the reason why I wanted rid of them. And this became quickly a bit disappointing for me as well, because I thought, oh, I don't think this is going to go very well. But we eventually settled on a price that allowed me to make a trade. So I traded my entire crate of records for one, and I ended up with this UK pressing of Nick Drake's Pink Moon, and I'm very happy to have this. This is a very rare record, and I'm pleased to have moved on some that I'm not listening to anymore, and that would have been a very long time to sell individually, if ever. And I'm happy to land this one. And I don't know if any of you guys are starting to trade up a bit with your collections, but I feel the higher end stuff, even as this hobby changes and prices fluctuate, I think in the long term, the higher end, rarer vinyl will always be collectible, and will be the stuff that people will be looking for. I think if you can, you know, if you're looking to invest in vinyl, don't do that at all. That's not the right move. But if you're looking for records that you think will maybe appreciate or will hang on to their value better than others, this record will be worth more than a 1980s Genesis record every day of the week forever. So this is what I decided to move my collection of stuff that's a little more common and things that I'm not listening to at all into something that has a little more value. So there you go. That's how I ended up with this Nick Drake Pink Moon, and it's a valuable record, and I'm happy with that trade. And as I say, I had stuff there that I've owned forever that I probably paid $1 a record for, to be honest, and it's not something I need anymore, so I'm happy to move it on. I want to talk a little bit about this hobby in general, because I think it needs to be mentioned, and some people get very wrapped up in things and prices and things like that. But vinyl to me is a cool collectible. I enjoy it. I like doing it, but we're on the other side of the mountain, I feel. I feel it has peaked, and COVID was the big spike, and after that, I think everybody that got in it out of curiosity and boredom and that sort of thing is now getting out of it. And if you stop 20 people on the street, I can almost guarantee you none of them are vinyl collectors. That it's not as common as people think, and it's not as widespread a hobby as people think. There are definitely record collectors. There's lots of people who enjoy physical media, but I don't know how long independent record stores are going to be actively able to sustain this. I don't know. I hope forever, and I hope there will be that type of industry. But people that are younger, that have grown up without any physical media, really don't care for the most part. There are exceptions. There are some people that like this and enjoy this, but to be honest, there's a lot that just could care less and are quite happy to stream whatever they're listening to. And I think we have to be aware of this. And so if you're getting into records as an investment, you think, oh, long term, this is going to be, I'm going to sell all this. And it's not as easy as you think to sell records, and there's not as many collectors as you think out there waiting to buy it. And record stores are not going to give you what you think you're going to get for them. So just a couple of things to be aware of. And I certainly, I know records will maintain value and there will be people that will be interested, but it's not going to be something you just instantly find a quick sale for the most part, I think. And it's worth mentioning. So that's just my 2 cents. Let me know in the comments what you think. Have you sold off a chunk of your records lately? Have you downsized? Have you traded into, like I just did, into something a little higher end? Have you done things like this lately? And I'd just like to know what your thoughts are. But I certainly feel that the hobby is kind of settling into where it's going to be for a while, and I think a lot of the newer, curious vinyl collectors are sort of backing out, and I know a lot of people looking to sell right now, I'll put it that way. And I think with the state of the economy in North America, probably in the world, this is not uncommon, and vinyl has kind of priced itself out of the average person's, if you're buying new vinyl in particular, that's something you're going to think about more than the prices of a lot of other things. So if it's one of places where people sort of treat themselves to something, and I think you're going to do that less if it's $50 a record. So just my 2 cents. Let me know in the comments if you think I'm completely crazy and not on the level with that. But I know I teach music to a lot of kids. Not a lot of them are into vinyl, and the ones who are not really into vinyl a lot, and they buy some, and it's more of a kind of a fascination at this point. But as a long-term collector that's going to buy your collection 20 years from now, I don't know if that's going to be out there. So the other side of that is, while the market is low, this is probably not the time to try to unload a bunch of stuff either. You just got to ride it out for a while if that's what you're looking to do. So there you go. That's my 2 cents. I hope you enjoyed a look at just kind of how my process was for that. It wouldn't work for everybody, but it worked for me, and I'm happy to have this record for now. But going along with the logic I just talked about, I don't know down the road if that's going to really maintain any value either, but for right now, I've got it. I'm happy with it, so there you go. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in, and I appreciate all the new subscribers, and we'll keep it coming, and look for a new video early next week. Thanks very much. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you're a big fan of rock and roll and you like records, guitars, and stories about rock and roll, be sure to give us a like and subscribe and ring that bell. It helps us to grow the channel and keep more stuff coming. Thanks a lot.